I obtained the plates from an angel of the Lord. They contain the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Then just how can I be of service to you?
I'd like you to be my scribe.
Oliver became convinced of the truthfulness and importance of Joseph's work and agreed to help him.
And he gave unto them power to baptize. And he said unto them, On this wise shall ye baptize, and there shall be no disputations among you.
We don't have to question anything in the church. Don't get off into that. Just stay in the Book of Mormon. Just stay in the Doctrine and Covenants. Just listen to the prophets. Just listen to the apostles. We won't lead you astray. We cannot lead you astray.
In this connection, may I offer a suggestion to all of us? If we truly desire to know the prophet, we must go to the right source. And that is not a Google search. As President Ezra Taft Benson taught, today, with the abundance of books available, it is the mark of a truly educated man to know what not to read.
May I share some friendly advice? For now, give Brother Joseph a break.
But some members of the church, many really are surprised by some of the things they learn in our history. And we want them to be able to go to a place where they can read accurate information and understand that those answers have been approved by the presiding brethren of the church. I think that will give many of our members confidence that they can rely on these answers. This has been groundbreaking in a way. These issues have not always had academic attention. They haven't really been researched carefully. Historians here in the Church History Department, as well as general authorities who've reviewed their work, suggested some edits. Those edits are made with the permission of the original writer. We understandably have not spent a lot of time in the past worrying about these issues because our mission is to promote faith and belief in the Lord Jesus Christ. But as the information age is now upon us, we feel with all of this information out there, we owe it, particularly to the rising generation, to provide good, reliable information.
Okay. Well, where's the data? Where's the story? Where is the evidence? I believe that progressive leaders in the church, they say that Joseph Smith, they do say he translated the plates by the gift and power of God. And so I think what will happen in the future is they'll say that this story was created by the gift and power of God. And eventually, way out into the future, they'll say it was a great religious, spiritual story that Joseph created. I think you've got to give Joseph some credit. I mean, this guy is powerful. And so they're not going to deny Joseph Smith, but they will explain Joseph Smith. And I think they'll explain him in a way that is authentic.
Right.
It is something of a sacrilege to continue, but I do so by assignment.
That popular classification of a substance as legal or illegal is not what determines obedience to the word of wisdom. And it raises, of course, the question of medical use of marijuana. Today's update, comments or questions? Elder Nelson?
Elder Jay Jensen and I had a priesthood leadership conference in Colorado Springs last Saturday, and it was time for their question and answer session. The very first question was medical marijuana, church's position. That's never happened to us before.
This morning, a physical therapist that I work with, who also is posted at the hospital in Logan, said he has a patient, 27 years old, who has one tooth only. He's unmet. And he said that the woman comes to see him once in a while with about a 3-year-old girl. But just a wasted life.
I can't understand our great emphasis on getting rid of tobacco and then start a project to increase marijuana. So inconsistent.
Yeah, I understand there are 14 states, I believe, that allow medical marijuana, and it's so easy to get a hold of now that young people are saying they can get marijuana more easily than alcohol, which is so strictly regulated, but marijuana is kind of an underworld.
What answer did you give, Elder Nelson, on the medical?
Jay Jensen handled it.
Well, we just said that we have a bishop who is a judge in Israel, and he has the scriptures and the handbooks, and that he would counsel with the individual and teach him about the word of wisdom, but the decision is there between him and the bishop and the Lord.
And that the church has no position.
The church has no position.
That is, the church has no position.
And when you raise the matter of meth, that opens a whole different world, because that young housewives can cook up on their kitchen burner. And you remember some years ago, I think Brother Alex Morrison was doing a lot to get into that in this community about how widespread, too widespread, that was along the Wasatch Front.
When the revelation was given, that revelation says, given as a principle with a promise. And it was not really considered a law until the administration of Joseph F. Smith, when he had presented in General Conference the proposition that the word of wisdom be considered as a law of the gospel, voted upon and passed.
The work of the Global Pilot Committee can come to an end today. We've received your reports and absorbed your information and factored it into what we're going to announce here in just a moment.
The heritage of the saints is to grow together by spiritual refinement through trial. Whether over the fence or across the world, each generation can be taught to prepare. And may it be useful to monitor financial and spiritual impacts on specific groups of members.
I think you've convinced me. I'll delay my retirement.
I was chairman over at Beneficial for a number of years, and I looked at life insurance. And it amounted to this. They looked at charts, and they bet that I was going to live so long. I bet that I wasn't, so I started paying them money to prove it. That about what it amounts to.
It's a lot quicker to go to Las Vegas.
Jeffrey, for a happy note, why don't you folks
let's go to something like 9/11 now.
Can't you quote?
I quoted Samuel Johnson to President Packer and Elder Oaks this morning, who said once that he tried to study philosophy once, but happiness kept breaking through. We hope we're in that matter.
Well, we have to pause and remember that we're leading 13 million people worldwide, and this pestilence, this tsunami is touching them all, so we've got to settle down, sober up, and wise up.
I think you've convinced me. I'll delay my retirement.
The scriptures often refer to these challenges and trials as stumbling blocks. Invariably, that path will contain stumbling blocks which can, if ignored, become trials, even crises in our lives, are those which we can avoid if we are obedient, plan ahead, and remain vigilant. My list is only a short one and does not begin to include the many stumbling blocks the adversary has stored in his quarry of sin and misery. The ways he can trip us up is limited only by our imaginations. The Mormon moment. This unprecedented attention on our church and our beliefs has also had a downside. Never before have we received such scrutiny. Some of our beliefs, which to some may seem peculiar, have been ridiculed by a few.
Inoculate is a word I use quite a bit for the rising generation.
Our responsibility is to appropriately filter this rhetoric and attempt to understand why such things are said. For a few, these verbal assaults have created a crisis of faith. They wonder if such things are true, and if so, how could they possibly be? But like all of us, they were not perfect. It is important to view the entire tapestry of our history and not just individual threads, which may seem to strike us as too peculiar if not viewed in the context of time and place.
And doubt never leads to faith.
As I visited with Stephen, he said that he had problems with the fact that Joseph Smith wrote or dictated 4 versions of the first vision. I'm really concerned about the polygamy that was practiced in Nauvoo and after the manifesto in 1890. I'm really concerned that the priesthood was withheld from those of African descent.
He had chosen to be a perpetual doubter.
I think it'd be helpful to know how we chose to roll those out. It was a soft rollout. There wasn't an announcement saying you can go to this website to learn everything weird about the Mormon Church you ever wanted to learn. Laughter from the audience, but yet we had a lot of people struggling with some of these issues. We were losing young people particularly. And we felt we owed a safe place for people to go to get these answered. So they were deliberately kind of placed in an existing database, so they wouldn't. 90% of the church probably couldn't care less, they don't worry about such things. But we do have some folks who are online, and we felt like they needed a safe place to go to get answers if they had questions. So I don't think you are gonna see a well-publicized campaign to tell you to go to these sites. But we just, the people that are interested seem to kind of pass the word amongst themselves. And the only other thing is that leaders now will have access to them. And I think probably the greatest long-term benefit will be, these are answers that have been vetted reviewed by the quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency, and they have signed off on these answers. And now curriculum and seminaries and institute can safely weave these essays into a future curriculum to, in a sense, inoculate is a word I use quite a bit for the rising generation. So, they can learn a little bit about these things without being totally shocked when they hear them for the first time. Does that make sense? Yeah, from someone in the audience. Yeah, okay. Inoculate is a word I use quite a bit for the rising generation.
Who was behind the wheel of our Lincoln Town car when we drove into the Crazy 8 Motel? Who could it be? Who could it be? I just can't imagine who. Could it be